One really noticeable difference between Perth and Sydney is the sheer volume of bike parking that you find outside all sorts of businesses right across the Perth metropolitan area. Try counting up the number of cafes, for instance, across Canada Bay that have secure, convenient bike parking out the front. Unless things have changed dramatically in the last 6 months, that's going to be a very short list. Why does this matter? It matters because councils have published all sorts of strategies over the last few years describing how all sorts of environmental goals are going to be met, and one way to meet many of those goals is to encourage residents to swap their car for a bike for short trips. Some examples might be going to the library to pick up a book or attend a community meeting, going to the chemist to fill a prescription, going to the news agency to buy a magazine, going to the bottle shop to buy a bottle of wine for dinner, going to the butcher to buy a few steaks, going to the supermarket to buy a bag of groceries, going to the bank to get some cash, going to an Italian deli to buy some specialty pasta or cheese, or going to a cafe to catch up with some friends. These are all activities that don't require a car to lug home a bootload of shopping. They can be done with a backpack, a basket on the handlebars, or panniers on the back. These are all functional transport activities. They don't involve cycling for leisure or exercise or commuting. However, no one is going to do any of this unless they can lock their bike up at the shop and be confident that it will still be there when they finish their coffee or whatever. No one is going to do this if they have to lock the bike up 100 metres from their destination. One of the benefits of using a bike instead of a car is that you can usually park it much, much closer to your destination. If you take away that end-of-trip convenience factor, then you remove much of the incentive to use a bike. People will continue to use their car when that happens. Just accept that people have a very strong preference for convenience and they want to park right at the shop door. Not next door, not down the street, at the door. I've spent about a third of 2022 in Perth, and during that time, I've done a lot of riding and visited a lot of cafes. I got the idea of documenting the bike parking at every cafe and putting together a playlist of videos briefly discussing the food, the coffee, and the security and convenience of the bike parking. My aim is to demonstrate that in Perth, end-of-trip bike parking is almost the norm rather than the exception. And this is something that Canada Bay should aim for as well. I could have focused on libraries or chemists or banks, but I chose cafes because, well, there's a lot of them, and mainly I like trying them out. This series is just a byproduct of my coffee drinking habits. As of now, the playlist contains 41 videos covering cafes located in 14 different council areas. Some councils are certainly better than others when it comes to providing businesses with secure, convenient bike parking for their customers. But I'm sorry to say that even the worst performing councils over here are better than Canada Bay when it comes to delivering on sustainable, environmentally friendly active transport. If you think Canada Bay is doing okay in this regard, I'm here to tell you that it's not. It's decades behind the supposedly backward hillbillies of the West Coast. I know that's not a message that people want to hear, but I'm not here to hand out participation medals to the losers. People need to be told the truth, even if it is unpleasant and uncomfortable. This video series doesn't look at whether one type of bike rack is better than another. It simply looks at whether some form of bike parking exists at each cafe and whether it's convenient and secure. By secure, I mean both a solidly mounted fixture and one where your bike can be observed at all times. If you think about the CPDE, the Crime Prevention Through Environmental Design model, cyclists tend to be fanatics when it comes to surveillance. If you install a bike rack in an out-of-the-way location that isn't defensible space, don't be surprised if no one uses it. This series is also warts and all. If a cafe doesn't have bike parking, then I've included it. I haven't left anything out that fails to support the narrative. I'm not going to claim that every single cafe has really good, secure, convenient bike parking, because clearly they don't. Some have no bike racks, some have crummy bike racks, some have bike racks located in indefensible space with the result that no one uses them. Some have insufficient bike parking, so you end up with bikes strewn all over the place because the bike racks aren't big enough. But what it does show is that bike parking is normal. It isn't special, it isn't a rare find, it's just a normal part of the street furniture. That's the kind of mindset the councils need to develop. This is just another asset that we install everywhere, like rubbish bins and seats and pram ramps and trees and street signs. If you think I'm pulling your leg, well, watch some of the videos. They show the good, the bad and the ugly. I didn't choose to visit these cafes because I looked them up on Google Maps first to see if they had bike parking. I visited them because I was on the road on my bike and I wanted to stop for a break. I found quite a few of them by chance and I had no idea what to expect when I pulled up. Yes, there are a lot of videos in this series and I don't expect you to watch them all, but I did so many because I don't ever want anyone to say I haven't provided enough evidence that bike parking in Perth is common. I've deliberately decided to go with overkill because sometimes that's the only thing that works. With any luck, this bombardment of cafe bike parking will lead to key people accepting that this is how things should be done in New South Wales.